Mark. Thanks very much for joining me today, mate.
No problem, Michael. It's a pleasure to be on your program.
Good on you. For those of you that are watching from all over the globe, I want to introduce to you my good mate MK, or Mark Kentwell, as his formal name. He does have some other names, but we won't discuss those on a public forum. Will we, Mark?
Many names.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things, I'm going to run through some of Mark's accolades, but this is very much a real estate business type video and the purpose of us running this short vid was for those of you, those real estate proprietors, principals and aspiring principals, to understand that when you chase what you want like this guy does, then you'll see what you get out of it. And this part of this program is basically about that. And for those of you that follow my Life, Love and the Pursuit of Real Estate channel, you'll notice that I'm always talking about what's been difficult and what we can turn around. So I want to try and keep this short discussion on that. And if we can create some momentum and change in people's vibrations and thought processes, well, then you can change and better the outcome of your life. So, we're living in a very strange world at the moment. And one of the things that I said before is Mark is the epitome for me of chase what you want and don't deny others anything they want. So my experience with Mark was initially birthed through meeting Mark at Dr. Fred. So we've had, how long have you been in Fred now, Mark?
I've probably been working with Dr. Fred since about 2013 or thereabouts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been with Fred about 27 years now. So, Mark, as you can see, is a lot younger than me, so he came into it a bit later. But I think he's a bit smarter than me. So, or maybe this interview will show. One of the things, when I asked Brooke, your PA, for all your accolades, guys, I want you to hear just a couple of these things that Mark has done since sort of 2010. Now, he's won in excess of 10 major awards. But the last that he won, which was 2 months ago, Mark, 3 months ago.
Yeah, it was sort of around. It was sort of in the heart or just after COVID, sort of took hold because we did a virtual ceremony.
Yeah, Mark runs multiple offices now in the Newcastle, Port Macquarie area under the banner of PRD. Before we get onto that, you're blessed to have some words spoken by him now on the basis that this guy here has been named the #1 Australian Principal of the Year, Metropolitan, for REB Awards for 2020. So, mate, congratulations! What a cracker award! Yeah,
thanks, Michael. I was pretty chuffed to receive that because there was an amazing field of competitors that were nominated for that, and it signifies. I suppose, an opportunity for me to have a microphone among some of the peers I respect the most, and also to a lot more consumers and agents out there in the industry, because that award being Metropolitan includes Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, where some of the best practitioners in the world of real estate are, let alone in Australia. So, I was very pleased across all brands for that one.
Mate, and I know you personally very well and well deserved. I find that one of the benefits I have, Mark, when you and I go out for our dinners and chats and go and have a beer at the pub, is that our conversation is always concentrated on the good of the many. And I think that predicates your thought process in running your business, because we never ever speak business without you talking about the whole team. So can you explain to me your thought process on team culture, team structure? How do you cope with having some family members in the business as well? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, they're great questions, Michael. And they're ones that I think people that are getting into business where they're setting up like a little contractor model and they're running, just 1 or 2 employees, or even if you're an employee in a business and you are making your way through, there's all a form of leadership in that. And that's why we have programs within our business called Leading Yourself and Others, because you've got to lead yourself first. Sort of like putting the oxygen mask on yourself first if a plane's going through turbulence or anything like that, so you can help others. So I have a look at sort of what drives me personally, and when setting up the whole consumer, setting up the business in the first place, I had a look at what things felt like natural flow for me.
Yep.
And I was 22 years old when I went into business. I went straight from another professional together, and I had a look at, well, what are the worldwide businesses in all fields? Which ones have done well? And it's ones that have started with servicing a large number of people in a meaningful way. And consumers are the largest number of people, I suppose, that a business owner can go after. And it doesn't mean every consumer is always right, because right's still a matter of opinion. There's no truth. There's only the truth as you see it. However, it's a sensible business model. It's a sensible business model to have something that serves consumers. And if you can create what I call a win-win-win rather than just a win-win, there's generally three parties that need to be served. In the case of any industry, there's the customer or client, and then there's, like in the case of a negotiation, a white paper, a white collar deal, or anything like commercial or residential, you've got a buyer, you've got a vendor, and you've got the industry. And if you have a look at that for property management, you've got tenant, you've got landlord, and you've got the industry. And you can replicate that through so many businesses. So if you can create a win-win-win outcome, and it's about reframing what's important to these people and helping them move ahead, because people are sort of crying out for options, but they're screaming out for guidance. And I don't know if people take that responsibility on board and whether they're focused on the right horizon. So I thought, well, from day one, I had multiple coaches from day one, and I still do to this day, and many mentor-mentee relationships, which I change sides with. And I'm very blessed to have people like yourself as a peer partner in the industry, and we can bring different things. You've got a wealth of experience, different geographical, different heritage, different business years, and different diverse industries that you've worked in, organisational culture there as well. And then I'll bring things like technology and systemology and what's happening on a global scale from a vision point of view. So if you can be driven by those things first, then you can instill those values in your business. I've got 5 main values in the business, and I'll go into those no doubt through one of the questions. But
I'll go now. Let's talk about that right now. Let's do it. Yep.
Yeah, sure. So a great business will never outpace its leader. And I really am surprised to see a lot of businesses, principal-run businesses or property manager-run businesses, which is totally fine as a model of doing business. But if a principal is expecting to recruit top talent or grow or develop top talent in any of the professions in there, if they don't have a vision for what's coming next, and if they're not exploring that on a regular basis and investing a substantial portion of the time that they have available on this planet while they're awake in looking into what's happening across the globe on different business structures and in their own industry, it's going to be very hard for that business to keep up with the speed of change of what's going outside the business. So
let me just to capitalize on that. Let me tell you something I read the other day from the University of California. The article I read said that R&D is by far the most important thing any business can do moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, research and development with what's coming.
Yeah, and it's interesting in PRD, which is the brand we've chosen to partner with for the last 15 years. It's property research development, but that was for different reasons when it was. So the first value is vision, and that ties in all the other things to do with innovation and seeing what's coming. So you can come back, you can go out, you can be an advanced scout, come back and say, this is what I've seen, then put things into place, and then trial and error and improve in what we call the infinite game. If you've read Simon Sinek's latest book, Infinite Game, which comes off the back of Start With Why. The next is abundance. So I like to teach an abundance culture within our business, but also to practice it. You've got to be what you say you want to be. So be, do, have, be the person first. Then you'll be doing the things that person is supposed to be doing if they want to show up that way. And then you'll have all of the outcomes that you're going for that tie in with that person and what that person's doing. So abundance is about understanding that there's enough out there for everyone, and that different people have got different spots in the animal kingdom. And if you want to be at a certain level of the animal kingdom, that comes with a lot of responsibility. So it's fine to be an absolute top agent or top property manager or own a business or whatever that may be, but you've also got to understand all the other learnings and things that go with that. And that's, I get sad when I see top performers in sales or property management or business ownership or franchising or scaling or technology, whatever it might be, and they've made what seems to be outrageous success on the scoreboard of one metric, and then you look at the life around them and it's chaos. The people who work with them are burnt out, their family lives are in trouble, if not gone through multiple separations, there's financial difficulties, there's things following them around that they would rather not. So, and it doesn't mean that I'm perfect, it means that I'm practicing abundance, and it's a mindset paradigm that you've got to carry with you everywhere you go in every interaction. So that's the second value.
I think the extension of that is that abundance notion is great. I agree with that. But you made a comment about successful people's lives on the external parameters, being fragmented or fractured. You know, my old saying, if home is good and work is shit, everything's still good. So I carry that abundance rule at home every day. We work on that, making sure that we have a gratitude for the abundance, but we make sure what do we have to do to make sure it continues. And then we can feed not only ourselves, we feed the others, as I'm talking about. So sorry to butt in.
No, that's fine. Like, I think that's the idea of the collaborative discussion. So, you know, one of my mentors taught me that, you know, gratitude's a gateway to abundance. So, the moment my head hit the floor in the morning, the first few thoughts that naturally go through your mind is, I'm tired, I want to sleep more. Geez, I went to bed too late, I've got to deal with something today. And then I go, hang on a second, look at my beautiful home, look at my beautiful wife next to me, listen to my beautiful kids sleeping in there. You know, and then I go down and drink beautiful coffee, drink beautiful alkaline water. I do my breathing exercise. I look out on my beautiful pearl. I then go down and train by a beautiful beach. And like, it's 5 seconds for me to reframe what's going on around me, but everyone's got a choice on that. So the third of the values is respect. Now, and the respect is not just like in the traditional term that you might see on a lot of movies. I think respect's actually an overused word. A lot of people say, oh, I respect you so much. Like, that would be someone that's coming up to you that probably admires you, but you don't really know if they respect you or you respect them based on a single interaction or something you've read about them. You know, it's very hard to get to a deep level of respect based on just an interaction. And the respect is also coming back to things like gratitude about the opportunity that you've got when you're setting foot in someone's home to manage it, to look after it on maintenance, to clean the toilets, or to own an organisation that's scaling, or to develop people's lives, whether you're a school teacher, a canteen clerk, whatever it might be. To have respect for what you've got is to have gratitude for what you've got, and therefore fulfill all of the best things that you can do within that responsibility that is given to you. And if you can see the world that way, and it's probably my hardest one to help people see the world of, because they take the bits that they want of each item, then they formulate their own view of what respect is for a client or an opportunity, and then and even just the role that they've got, and then they're reframing their version of respect a lot of the time. So it is a reinforcement. It takes a fair bit of attention from a business owner and the leadership tribe within that business to keep that value strong.
Yeah. Well, that's what the role of the Pied Piper that I talk about in my seminars is to make sure that we keep filtering that communication and knowledge dispersal through the group. I call it the Pied Piper theory, because there needs to be one leader that is bringing that forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can have many visionaries, but there is normally someone that is the pinnacle point. Now, in your business, it's you because you're the driver. And obviously, you know, like between you and I, when you and I have a discussion, I think 5 times more amount of words are used than anyone else I know because we're flat out, you know. But I say that as a bonus, but that abundance thing and continuing on with that is really interesting. So then that relies that your communication always has to be at an extremely high level.
Yeah, and I think I've got to be practical about this too, because I do believe in the principles of Vern Harnish and Simon Sinek and so many others there around scale. Yeah. So you've got to have a very strong and convicted belief, but you've also got to have things that can be scaled. So as a D-type personality, or if on the reach profile I'm a driver, if you have a look at all of those things, like I get things done through others. But in order to do that, I've got to influence others. They've got to feel my message, see my message, understand my message, know my message, and then be willing to go and carry that message forward. And then you look at books like It's the Manager or First Break All the Rules, which are by the Clifton organisation and Gallup, off Don Clifton, the Strengths Finder guy. So, you know, if you're going to get things done on a substantial scale, you need to have a leadership team or management team that are actually willing to sing that song and believe it and own it. The first sale you've got to make is on yourself. So I see that respect, abundance, and the visionary stuff is all washing through to the 4th value, which is courage. And the courage one is not necessarily about jumping off a cliff without knowing what's down below. It's more about having the courage to have courageous conversations, to show up when you don't feel like showing up, to actually own things for yourself. And to be willing to be vulnerable in front of others, to be willing to use I messages instead of pointing the finger and making accusations with the word you did this or you did that and what you did was this.
Vulnerability and humility are the 2 most important things in relation to the human condition. In that transition of when you and I speak, and we know the other one might be off course a bit, we've both been humble enough when the other one's been vulnerable to some criticism or some restructure of thought. So, that's what you're talking about. And that sometimes is above friendship, because I always, my thought process on the three major things in life: loyalty, respect, and love, in that order.
Yeah.
Right? The respect thing, I think you're right on with. I think if the other person feels that you're loyal, then they generally take any criticism you can give them. That's why loyalty is so important. On the plus and the minus side of loyalty, it is once people feel that they've got a team around them that is loyal, quite frankly, the business is secondary. It just grows.
Yeah, and I think that's something, Michael, that, if I have a look at some of the great organisations that have had genuine loyalty as part of their backbone, you don't need to say the word. You just need to say how important it is at the start, but you don't have to keep reminding people of it. I do struggle a bit when I hear agents that have come to me, whether they're with our firm or whether they're with another firm. I sort of do some inadvertent mentoring. I deliberately don't set myself up as a coach for businesses outside of our own, unless it's on a formalised role like I've got with the CEO Council, for example, through Pilot Venture Partners, where I go into businesses and I consult on the stuff that's my highest and best use, which I'll get to in a minute. But I think loyalty is often confused for mercenary. Yeah. And mercenary sounds like a really harsh term, but let's look at what mercenary is. They're prepared to fight for whatever team provides them the best conditions and serves them. And then they reframe that to say, I'm serving my family, so I'm putting my family above myself. So therefore, I'm loyal to my family, and therefore I'm loyal to the person who's paying me. And I don't believe in that at all. I think that's just mercenary. And if you're talking about a mercenary soldier that was willing to jump off one team and start attacking his old teammates, that's what happens a lot of the time. People think they're loyal because they're still somewhere, but if they're still somewhere, what serves them to be there? And if the conditions are optimal all the time, your loyalty's not being tested. If the conditions are optimal all the time, then you've just got great conditions, and that's what's keeping the person there. If loyalty's keeping them there because they're forgiving them for saving their life, in the case of, people do give a life of service for having their life saved. Back in the day when, there might have been gladiators or whatever, if their life was spared, they might owe it to someone and then they serve, or it might be a slave that was released back in those days. It might be someone that was saved on the battlefield and that looked after the person's kids for the person who died. And you start coming up the chain now into this white-collar world we're in, or this new age world, this round-collar world, whatever it is, where entitlement starts to come in, where other opinions and values are really often confused. I think if we start having a look at what loyalty really is, it's when it's tested that is loyalty showing up. Anything other than that is some version of, I appreciate these conditions, I'm going to serve as long as I can while it suits me, I'm going to be mercenary as long as I'm getting a little bit better than somewhere else. But if you then go and look at that matrix, yes, I've got an obligation as an employer, as to others, to make the best environment for someone to succeed as possible. But does that mean that every time that someone has something that's a challenge to an idea that's been presented, or they've come up against a situation they're not comfortable or adept at dealing with, or they're uncomfortable and they're pushed out of their comfort zone, they need to use courage, respect, if they need to have a look at vision and abundance, if they have to practice those things, if that's tested and then they just want to divert off at the first sight, then that's not loyalty at all. And that's not to say that all businesses don't have to deal with that, but I think it's a fundamental thing I would love to be put out there a little bit more about definitions of big words like respect and loyalty that are used. Not that I have a problem with it, it's just to be aware of. The last one is HABU, and we made this up. It's highest and best use. So we're not the first one to use that term. Developers use it all the time, such as yourself. What's that piece of land's highest and best use? Yeah. I've got a factory. It could be warehouse apartments. It could be a really productive venue for cafes. It could be making coffee. It could be turned into a single house. It could be knocked down and dot. It could be mined for minerals. So highest and best use in our case is where are we deploying our time, our energy and our talents so that people are working in much more of a state of flow. Now, some people will not be in a state of flow when there's change involved, but change comes from the other things that are above us, including vision, and that there's constant change in an infinite organisation that is evolving. So highest and best.
Well, scaling helps that though.
Scaling helps it.
Yeah, that's right. If you've got scale and management and the communication's good, you can control all that.
Exactly. And look, I suppose controlling the wild beast sometimes when there is scaling going on is part of the challenge, but that's where all those other values help. So If we're a values-driven organisation, it doesn't mean we don't deal with challenges, but the challenges are more identifiable, they're more measurable. It doesn't stop that person going that was going to go. It doesn't stop that person having a fallout with a colleague or a client or whatever it might be. But what it does is it helps identify it, and you can start scratching the itch a lot easier, and you can empower people within the organisations, whether managers or otherwise, to lead from within and use their active listening, use their right messages, use their, the actual human traits to go and deal with those values-based collisions and head them off at the pass before they fester.
Okay. Now, I've got a question that will sound not related, but by the end of the question, you'll see it is. When you've upscaled your businesses, what thought process have you given to the people in your business that you thought may leave? So you upscaled your business to keep the business growing and keep the better people in the business. Yeah,
so it's probably where I invest a fair bit of thought in this area, and part of how I do that is if I just think about so many scenarios, like the great leaders, the Winston Churchills, the Martin Luther Kings, the people that were way back before our time, or even TV was around, and the people of the more modern era, the Steve Jobses and the Simon Sineks, the people that are giving speeches and moving nations. They're very good at storytelling, and they're not making up stories. They're talking about their why. Why would you do something like this? Not the what or the how, but the why. And I like to have a look at other case studies that are evolving and happening outside of our business. I like to talk to the people directly that are in these evolving roles and expanding universes and find out what are the things that drive them and would keep them around. I also have used a recent technique that I've learned that I've been practicing for a while, but it's now got a name on it. People are on your boat for their reasons.
Yep.
Right? So you can be the captain of the ship. You can have a rudder in there with the values to guide it. You can have all these things going on, but they're on your boat for their reasons. If we can get to the bottom of what those reasons are, and like Tom Bilyeu says, the founder of Quest Nutrition, if you could say, when you're at your most selfish and I'm at my most selfish, if you use that term just to make it really stand out, if you're at your most selfish and I'm at most selfish and we can both coexist within this organisation or this relationship, that we've got a strong foundation for a relationship, then we can start looking at where our taking away from selfish and talk about goals, aspirations. If we can align and collaborate and share on those ideas, it's going to be absolute dynamite in a positive way. So I have a look at, the things that drive different people and look, I've got to say in real estate in particularly, in commission-based or unlimited earnings-based professions, whether it's rock stars or sports players or anything with talent associated, where there's a sort of unlimited scale to it, it's not linear. There's a high degree of significance being a driver for people. And when significance is a driver, it's something that needs to be looked at. If they're driven by safety and security, it's a different thing again. If they're driven by that love and connection, it's a different thing again. If they're driven by growth and contribution, which are higher needs, you can actually give them opportunities to grow. But if we don't know what their drivers are, it's going to be hard. But I have got multiple ways that people can stay within our expanding universe and continue to grow and make more money than they ever would have made if they had gone out on their own, or if they stayed an employee, or even if I had gone that way in the first place, if it was presented to me. So there's more than one option. It's not cookie cutter, because if it's cookie cutter, it's still only going to suit a small percentage of people. You want to get them all anyway.
Yeah, okay. That's good. That's good. I thought what we might do, Mark, is that was a really good explanation, and we might keep these videos pretty short. We might do a succession of videos.
Yes, yeah, I'd be happy to do one just on that, no problem.
Yeah, right, and so we can cover that. And I think in sort of, and what I'll do is I'll round up now, and I think those things that you've mentioned, those 5 strategies are really important. And for you real estate principals, the reason that I'm talking to Mark, aside from, I've been out of the real estate industry now about 18 years as far as the retail part of it goes. And my development company and consultancy company have been running since. And it's interesting learning, but you, aside from you and I being friends, you are probably one of the most proficient real estate people I've ever met, right? And it's based on your clarity of where you want to be. So, it's the old thing, what you concentrate on grows and what you don't fucks up. So your focus generally is very acute, pinpoint on focus. And I find, as much as we like to akin ourselves with people like us, intolerance of crap and your line of vision was very much what I used to be criticised of. But still very much that way today. When I get up and I've got something in my mind, I generally don't let it go until I've got it completed. So, and I think if I got anything out of today, it's the importance of scaling and making sure that we have the right people around us, making sure that we pay for the right people around us, because too many real estate proprietors, especially here in Melbourne now, because the COVID thing has been an interesting scenario for us, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of major named businesses have struggled badly where they didn't have more than 6 weeks cash flow in Melbourne. Now, interestingly enough, our mutual friend Adrian has been trading great.
Yeah.
We upped the ante on what we were doing. He's been listing well, still selling during COVID stage 4, doing well. So therefore, not only is he only not preserving his business, but all his staff know what's going on. And all been allocated extra duties and different duties than before. And that's how you manipulate a business to stay strong in a changing market you can't control.
Yeah, I've got to chime in here, Viv. Because I do know Adrian is a very disciplined, very values-driven man as well. Sits in a different section of the reach profile than I do. He's very strong on that human connection side, and he would be that sort of manager that puts their arm around someone and then has someone like yourself that they're aligned with. Because it's fine not to have a wide reach profile. I'm so far down into the D, it's not funny as far as driver, but that's why I empower other people around me to go and fulfill it. I know how to act those roles, but if I did it all the time, I'm not giving my best to myself and the planet, and therefore there's a loss. So if I have a look at businesses like Adrian's that have adapted, and others that, one of them was on that guy that's got the cafe and the supermarket we talked about, that's doing different things on one of our recent. Yeah, so there's a great book on this called The Goal by a guy called Elihu M. Goldratt. And, I read a lot of books. It's been a blessing for me to have audio books because I listen to them on double speed. So I'm getting through a book about every 2 to 3 weeks, whereas it used to literally take me months to get through a book because I start imagining things. Whereas at double speed, I tune in, I get it done, I'm out of there. That book called The Goal is written like a novel, and it's about middle America in the sort of 70s and 80s when Japan was taking a lot of their manufacturing opportunities away from them because they hadn't innovated.
Yes.
And it's about redeploying human capital and energy and getting people in a state of flow and working collaboratively. When you've got parameters around you can't control and some things are fixed. So, that's what's going on right now. The businesses that are adapting during COVID are absolutely thriving, and there's a bit of an unfortunate but necessary natural selection process going on. It's very Darwinian what's happening right now.
But it's offering a better service because, and you just touched on that before, in this marketplace that we're experiencing here in Australia and Victoria, and I don't know if you noticed this morning, the UK this morning has now regressed. They're starting to do a shutdown and a whole range of things. But businesses that survive create more service opportunity for themselves. Where they can service people better. And when you have that mentality and that mindset, those other 5 stages of your growth or your business structure running come into play. But in the end, it's all structured around what more can we do for you to retain your business and do more business with you. Yep,
exactly. Start with client first, you'll get there. Well, Viv, it's been great being on the program. I really appreciate it. Happy to be back on soon for another.
We'll talk, mate. God bless you. Love to your family. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you.
Mark Kentwell, PRD, Newcastle. Look him up. Stay great, Mark.